Hi there, it's Heather Fiore with Free State Nutrition. I am here to talk about the recent American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines. Um, it's like all over everywhere that I'm reading and I'm listening, and like in my world, it's everywhere. But I realize, you know, maybe my world and your world look different. So um, I thought I would talk about it. The other thing about this is there are people who are a lot smarter, a lot more informed uh, than me talking about this. And I've shared some of that with people in my newsletter and various places. There are really excellent podcasts and articles and blogs and things that have been written about this situation. People who have taken deep dives into certain aspects of this. So I do encourage you to check some of that out. Um, but I'm going to share my opinions just because I can. And I'm riled up, and I think anybody who hears about it is also riled up, and maybe that's just me in my little bubble. But okay, so here's what we're talking about. Like I said, the American Academy of Pediatrics, or the AAP, recently released guidelines on the treatment of children and adolescents with quote unquote obesity. Now, this is not a term I use in my practice, in my life, but I am going to use it while we're talking just because otherwise the words get awkward and, you know. Just, as a side note, this is not how I usually talk about children or people in general in larger bodies, but this is what we're dealing with today. Okay, so the way they define this obesity is, in case you don't know, it is using the BMI. And for children and adolescents, there's a curve, just like the growth curves. So if you're over the 95th percentile for your age and sex, voila, you have obesity. Like the whole thing about BMI, like that's a whole other conversation. BMI is trash. Like that's pretty well established. It wasn't meant to be used on individuals. We only use it because it's like easy to do. So, okay, first issue is the definition of obesity. But there we are. Then um, they do acknowledge that, obesity is complicated. There are lots of what? I am kind of doing something right now. So it's complicated. There are lots of contributing factors. There are, there's like all the social determinants of health. There's adversity. There's weight stigma. There's like all this other stuff that is contributing potentially. And but just put all that aside and like let's carry on. That's basically the approach they've taken here. Yes, we acknowledge all that stuff, but we're not going to do anything about any of those other things. So here we go. They also acknowledge that the studies that they used to establish the guidelines are not very good. They do not meet the standards for quality that they set. Again, they just carried on. They're like, well, this is what we have. So here we go. We are just going to use them, even though, they're not very good, but they're all we have. Okay, then they, mentioned like a multidisciplinary approach and stuff, but there were no other disciplines that were in the room when they were establishing the guidelines. Now, the people that were in the room, that's also another whole conversation. Who are they? What are their relationships to the industries that are influenced by these guidelines? Like, there's all sorts of questions about that. Another topic, not going to get into it, but let me just state that there. And then they make the jump that lowering your BMI or your BMI percentile or whatever leads to a reduction in what they call comorbid conditions. And, these are basically like conditions that are happening at the same time that they assume are caused by this obesity. Things like maybe like high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever. Kids do not have a lot of these conditions, of course, but in the rare case that they do, they decide it's because of their obesity. There are no studies that confirm that. It's just what they decided to believe. So, if you've ever taken like a research class in college, like, research methods or whatever, like, research number 101 is causation, or correlation is not causation, right? Like, just because two things are correlated, you cannot make the jump that one causes the other. Like, it could be a theory that maybe that is the case, but then you would have to show that to be true in research studies. That has not been done here. We are just making the jump. We are saying these things are correlated, therefore there's a causative relationship. Basically, what that results in is pathologizing larger bodies. Yes, we are pathologizing certain sizes of bodies without evidence that there's a problem. We just decided there is. Now, I realize this isn't like coming out of nowhere. They've been talking about childhood obesity for like, I don't know, maybe not 30 years, but almost 30 years. My whole career, like, this is a thing we haven't been talking about. So it's not out of the blue, but talking about it and doing all this stuff has not resulted in any impact in any sort of positive way. Okay, but here's what they're going to do. Okay, so here's the plan. Here are the recommendations based on these shoddy studies. All right, here we go. For kids over the 2 or older, the age of 2 years and older, who have obesity, they're in the 95th percentile for their height and weight, or their BMI, intensive health, behavior, and lifestyle treatment. So it's like 26 hours a year of like badgering the child and their family about, diet and exercise, basically. That's been done, people. Maybe not as young as 2, but that's the thing that's been done like over and over the past almost 30 years. It's not working. It doesn't work and is very harmful. Okay, great. That's like the best one. Next, we step it up. By the age of 8, if you have any of these comorbid conditions, quote unquote, we might recommend medications for weight loss. Now, mind you, these are not necessarily medications for your condition, which hopefully you're getting also. Like, if you have a condition, like, get medications and treatment to address the thing directly. But no, they're saying use these weight loss drugs on these kids and hope that it changes their weight and then improves the other condition. Like, a lot of jumps are being made here. Okay. If you're not 8 or you don't have any health conditions that are comorbid, then when you turn 12, that's when you get to go on these medications with or without any health conditions at all, other than obesity, which we just decided was a disease, and we don't know that it is. It may not be a problem, but yes, medications to treat it. Great. Then, by the age of 13, we can start talking about surgery. We can talk about mutilating the perfectly healthy GI tracts of children in order to reduce their BMI and hopefully indirectly impact their health. Okay. Are y'all with me here? This is yikes. So, okay, so the intensive behavioral health stuff doesn't really work. And really, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it. I don't even know who's doing this, what's it costing, how, who has access to this? So many questions. And what does it look like? Is it? It's probably like the stoplight diet and that kind of stuff. Um, the medications, okay, just to review, have not really been tested long term in kids. Sure, some of them are like shown to be effective in the short term in adults, but all medications have risks, right? And side effects. And the side effects of these medications are not awesome. We're talking about like loose stools, like bathroom accidents, nothing teenagers want anything to do with. I assure you, not that adults do, but at least adults get to decide. Like, you're an adult, you get to make that decision for yourself. You've got your whole, frontal cortex, like everything is intact, and you get to decide about that. You're 13? Yeah, that's not, you're not really going to be capable of making that decision. Whew. And then, of course, there's the surgery, right? We're talking about permanent mutilation of GI tracts that are working perfectly fine. And again, for adults, you get to decide, hopefully between you and your doctor, you decide if this is the right thing for you. It's almost never going to be the right thing for an adolescent who is maybe not even done growing. Like, you are basically asking to become malnourished. Like, people who have these surgeries have to take special supplements to get all their nutrients. Otherwise, they will be malnourished. Like, for the rest of their lives, their absorption of nutrients has been altered. They need these supplements. Like, what teenager do you know, like, takes their vitamin on a daily basis? Like, they cannot be relied upon to commit to that kind of thing. Like, you've got to take this or you're getting malnourished. Like, your growth could be stunted. What's going to happen to your bones? Like, do you understand how important bone growth is in adolescence? Maybe even if you're done growing, your bones double in density, or at least they're supposed to, during your teen years. But not if you can't eat because your stomach is the size of a tablespoon. What are we doing? These are people who might want to have a child. Like, they might want to grow a child in their body one day. Can you do that? Do we know? Can you do that when your stomach is the size of a tablespoon? I don't know. And what adolescent is even thinking about that, right? Like, again, you're an adult, you get to decide, like, yes, I understand the risks and all the stuff, Okay. All right. Look, we know even if obesity is a real disease and causes all these problems, we don't know how to fix it. Okay, we don't know how to help people lose weight and keep it off. That is the sad truth here. After all these decades of research, we haven't cracked the code. We haven't figured it out. So even if it is a problem, which is debatable, we don't know how to fix it. Okay, so just deciding to get more intensive and aggressive doesn't mean you're going to be any more effective. In fact, there's this very cute little graph in there. Maybe I'll try to share it in the comments of this post. There is this graph that basically shows, like, over the course of somebody's lifetime, how they're going to lose weight and gain it and lose it, weight, gain it, and like, it's basically weight cycling. They are normalizing weight cycling as an approach to treating people with obesity. There's their little doctor right next to them. They're all smiling. Hee, 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 here we go. We're gaining and losing weight. Weight cycling is harmful mentally, emotionally, and physically. It is harmful to someone's body. And we're condoning it here. Now we're just saying, like, sorry, this is your lot in life. You get to fight your body for the rest of your life. Let's go. Starting at the age of 2. Okay. Here's what you can do as a parent. If there are any pediatricians listening, obviously you get to decide too, I hope. And I hope there is like a serious revolt against this. I really do. I really hope pediatricians say, no, this is crazy. We're not doing it. Try again next time. Like, absolutely not. This makes no sense. I hope that's what happens. For parents, you are still the parent of your child. You can refuse any of these treatments along the way. You can ask them to go back to their most recent recommendation of the AAP, which was to not discuss weight in front of the child or adolescent. That was the most recent recommendation. It's like, if you're going to talk about weight or BMI or whatever with parents, you do it outside of the, the kid is not in the room when it happens. But if you are providing 26 hours of intensive, health behavior and lifestyle treatment or medications for the purpose of weight loss or weight loss surgery, like, of course, that is a huge, that's the focus of your conversation. So they just did a complete 180 on this topic. Like, oh, never mind. Now it's perfectly okay to talk about this in front of kids and let them know how wrong we think their bodies are. And, that's not going to contribute to weight stigma at all, of course. So you can refuse to participate in any of that as the parent. You can ask lots of questions. What are the risks of this treatment you're suggesting? What is the safety? What's the effectiveness? Is this shown to work? Like, show me the data. At home, you can, just model normal, healthy eating by, like, not talking about your bodies and just like eating like normal, healthy stuff and a variety of things, and just sort of, making that part of what happens. Having family meals. It doesn't matter what you are serving. If you have family meals, your kids are better off in a lot of measures, like a lot of measures. That's such a simple thing. I'm not saying it's easy with kids' activities and things, but it is a simple thing. Eat meals together as much as you can, and that is good for you and your kids' development for sure. Intuitive eating. Hi. Encouraging kids to listen and trust their bodies, to, practice that yourself, to normalize food rather than, demonize certain things. Just food is food and it's no big deal. And your body tells you when you're hungry, your body tells you when you're full. It, again, not easy, but it is that simple. Like, that is the thing. And kids are much better at that than adults. They're much closer to doing that than we are. So all you need to do is encourage that and just, foster it rather than, trying to make them eat vegetables that they don't want to eat, or you have to finish this before you can have dessert, or, all the negotiating and the bribing and stuff that we do with kids. Just don't do any of that. Just put the food out. Your job is put the food out when it's mealtime or when it's snack time, and they decide if they're going to eat it or not. Ta-da. That's it. Okay, there's so much more I have to say about this, but I hope my insights are helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I appreciate you watching.